everyone, Chivos here, bringing you my Hyundai A-League fixture review for the fixtures of week 7, and the first game of the weekend saw my team Melbourne Victory beat Central Coast Mariners 2-1 at Amy Park. A brace from Guy Finkler was enough to get the win for Melbourne Victory, while Matt Sim managed to score another header late on 2 weeks in a row. I've already reviewed this game, it's on my channel already, and I will leave the link in the description below. The second game of the weekend saw Brisbane Roar draw 1-1 with Melbourne City Football Club. Melbourne City opened up the scoring in the 47th minute thanks to a defensive error from Brisbane Roar. Now this was an absolute shocker. I've watched the highlights, just ridiculous. Jamie Young hurried to take the goal kick, but it hit the back of Daniel Bowles. Fornaroli managed to collect the ball and played the ball to Aaron Moy, who struck a goal, but Young managed to parry the save to the right hand side, but Harry Navillo was too quick and managed to slide. He shot and slid, and the ball ended up in the back of the net to make it 1-0, and Navillo managed to punish Brisbane Roar for their defensive mistake. It was an absolute shocker. Could not believe it. But it was not the only mistake Jamie Young made in the game. Pretty much the only other highlight before Brisbane Roar's goal is the fact that Melbourne City almost came close in the first half when Jamie Young slipped over in his own box, accidentally released the ball, which ended up in the path of Melbourne City. Aaron Moy ended up with the ball. He tried to strike the shot, but it went wide left of the post. So he was lucky not to concede earlier on in the match. But Henrique, the saviour from last week, managed to score the equaliser and make it 2 goals in 2 games since his return from injury. Thomas Browich made the goal happen after managing to retain the possession in the midfield. Now, Thomas Browich, the international marquee for Brisbane Roar, is an exceptional player, and he held on to the ball so well before finding Enrique in the attacking third. Enrique managed to bring the ball down and strike it to put it in the back of the net. You know, it's a 1-1 draw there. Not the best result for both teams, but not the worst. Probably better for Brisbane Roar because it did see them eventually go top of the table. But could they hold on? That is the question. The third game of the weekend saw Western Sydney Wanderers beat Wellington Phoenix 2-1 at home. Pierre Vicari opened up the scoring for Western Sydney Wanderers in the 9th minute while on the counter-attack. Now, this was a strange counter-attack because what happened was there was a Wellington corner on the attack. They pushed a lot of players up. Western Sydney managed to get them on the break. So what happened was all the Wellington players were pushed up. There was one player standing on the halfway line. He pressed to make the challenge, but the ball was played past him. Then Bridge was on the left, and was it Pierre Vicari? Yes, it was. He was on the right-hand side. So what happened was a Bridge ran down the center of the park. Then narrows the gap, narrows the angle to Glenn Moss. But what happens? He plays across the face of Glenn Moss to Pierre Vicari, who taps the ball home to make it 1-0. Then, not long later, Jamison managed to score an absolute thunderbolt. You know, this was ridiculous. The power on this strike was crazy. How hard he hit this ball was incredible. And everyone thought it was in. Although, there was a foul in the box to a Wellington player, so the goal was disallowed. Now, that is one of the best disallowed goals I've ever seen. It's very unfortunate to be disallowed after the cheap foul, but you know, that is what happens. But then, Manny Muscat scored for Phoenix in the 18th minute when he was played the ball on the left-hand side. He turned the defender and shot with his right, which saw the ball go across the goal into the bottom left corner. Very, very good there from Manny Muscat, you know, proving his worth for Wellington Phoenix. But then, Mark Bridge ended up scoring for the winner for Western Sydney in the 85th minute of the game when a corner was flicked on by Sandslab. Bridge collected the ball at the far post, managed to take on Krishna with one touch before striking the ball into the roof of the net. It's a good win for Western Sydney Wanderers, which sees them win 4 in a row. Ridiculous turnaround from Western Sydney Wanderers. The second game on Saturday saw Perth Glory draw 0-0 with Sydney FC. I didn't think this game was going to be a 0-0, but it was. It turned out to be a scoreless draw. And one of the main reasons behind this was because of the weather. Both teams could not handle the weather. It was reportedly 34 degrees Celsius, and there was no shade whatsoever. So the problem here was the heat caused many drink breaks. And when you have drink breaks, it stops the momentum of the play, and it just slowly kills off the game. Both teams had chances to score, but either could put the ball in the back of the net. The only real talking point of the game was when Alex Grant had a head clash with Milos Ninkovic after they both went up for an aerial challenge. Alex Grant did end up bleeding from the head, and he was sidelined for several minutes, but then eventually came on and managed to play on. But apart from that, it's quite an uninteresting game. It's quite disappointing, and a 0-0 draw between Perth Glory and Sydney FC, who were undefeated before last week. To see them not score is it's different. But Perth Glory keeping a clean sheet, there's a huge thing for them, and I bet they'd be happy with that. And the final game of the weekend saw Adelaide United and Newcastle Jets also draw 0-0. The statistics say that Newcastle Jets managed to control a majority of the possession, although they did not register a shot in the whole game. Now, how you go a game without taking one shot is beyond me. How often do you hear of a game where a team hasn't taken a shot, especially in a league that is so competitive? It does not make any sense. But the thing about Newcastle not taking a shot was Eugene Galekovic would have really loved his afternoon, especially considering it was his first game back from injury, didn't have to do anything in goal. So, it's a good thing for Galekovic. Adelaide United had a solid game statistically. They shot so many times, they failed to convert that into a goal. So the problem with that is Adelaide United still winless, still on the bottom of the table. But Newcastle will be concerned about this result because they controlled majority of the game, but they could not even register a shot. Now, how do you feel about not registering a shot? I mean, that's bizarre to me, but it does happen. But I'll bring you guys now to the main talking point of the weekend. That is the A-League ladder. Top of the table is Brisbane Roar FC with 14 points. So even with their draw, they managed to claim the top of the table. In second place is my team, Melbourne Victory, who are on 13 points, also with Western Sydney Wanderers. But you do have to remember, Melbourne Victory do have a game in hand. So if they win that game in hand, they are 2 points clear on top of the table, and that game is against Perth Glory. The Western Sydney sit in third, all because of goal difference. But it's a good turnaround for Western Sydney. 4 wins in a row. They've picked up 12 points in 4 matches. That's huge for them. Sydney FC stand in 4th position. They're on 12 points. Obviously, the loss against Melbourne Victory hurt their confidence. And a 0-0 draw against Perth Glory is not a good sign for them. And that sees them drop down the table. And surprisingly, from 5th to 10th, all stay in the exact same position on the table. Newcastle obviously drawing. Wellington Phoenix losing. Melbourne City managed the draw. Central Coast Mariners lost. Perth Glory managed to draw. And Adelaide United managed a draw as well. No, yeah, that's correct. It is. So Adelaide United sit bottom of the table, winless still after 7 matches. That is very, very confusing, but it is what happens in football. So top goal scorer, as you can see, still Bruno Fornaroli. He didn't manage to score this weekend. Bessart Barisha didn't manage to score because he was rested. If you watch my video on the Melbourne Victory game, you will learn a bit more about that. Trifunovic obviously didn't score, Barallo didn't score, and Christian didn't score either. Most assists. Has anyone climbed the assist chart? No. Aaron Moy and David Carney still there. Most saves. Birighetti on 26. Sorensen is slowly catching him, and Glenn Moss on 19. So Birighetti proving to be the best keeper so far with the saves. Completed passing. Miguel Angel Garcia Perez from Brisbane Roar has now climbed to the top of the passing table with 466 completed passes. So that's a very, very good for him. But as you can see, 3 Adelaide United players under that. So Adelaide United passing the ball far too much and not doing anything with it in the final third. But then the most clearances, Ben Sigmund still with 43. Dominating still. It is ridiculous. But then Matthew German, Connor Chapman, Norbo and Lee Broxham. But to see Sigmund up there with 43 shows the Wellington defence they're struggling, and without Sigmund, as I said last week, they would really be struggling. But my name has been Chivos. This has been my A-League fixture review for week 7. Make sure you leave a like on the video. Leave a comment. Tell me how you thought your team performed this weekend, and tell me where you think they went right or where you think they went wrong. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to see more Hyundai A-League content, and I'll catch you guys on another video.